Welcome, bros and brosophiends. My name's Albrecht von Stollen, and today I'm gonna be reviewing episode 6 of Taisho Otome Otogibanashi. Will this become a kabitserye? Before anything insane happens, let's go! I finally finished that monarchist video. Time for me to watch some Taisho Otome. Episode 6 is quite a development. Even the title is quite fitting. As to what a kabitserye means, this is a Filipino term which translates to infidelity-centered soap opera. I did mention this in the previous review. Instead of the usual maiden introduction, we start where we left off last week. That weirdo woman getting Tamahiko's bookmark and wallet. After the opening theme, we find out that weirdo's name, Rio. As it turns out, her dad set her up to it, complete with domestic violence, all because the dad found out that the money is not enough. That gives Tamahiko a flashback of how his own dad was dismissive towards him, complete with a lot of yelling. He returns home, feeling ashamed despite Yuzuki trying to cheer him up. The next day, Tamahiko and Yuzuki are eating breakfast. She invites Tamahiko to go out with her as he's feeling down, but he declines, going off to leave on his own instead. He goes to Ryo's place where he sees Ryo and her brothers bathing in the backyard. They all end up at the back of their house where Ryo extorts money from Tamahiko for seeing her naked. Living up to the episode's title, are we Ryo? She mentions that she's 18. I'll be using that for later. But wait, there's more! Tamahiko's scared of her as she acts like a typical delinquent. Tamahiko asks Ryo to return that bookmark back to him, and she convinces one of her younger brothers to get tutored by Tamahiko, complete with blackmailing him. He reluctantly says yes, and he has had to tutor all of her younger brothers. More foreshadowing, perhaps? Tamahiko explains to Ryo that the bookmark is very important to him, hearkening to the events of episode 5. Annoyed at how Ryo's brothers kept calling him Rich Boy, he introduces himself and Ryo mocks him with a pun. The day ends and Tamahiko sadly goes home without the bookmark. The next day, Tamahiko returns to being sleepless and having to deal with both Yuzuki and Ryo, with the latter showing up to his house. He's surprised and goes to see the both of them. Ryo remarks on how Yuzuki was bought by the Shima family and how Tamahiko likes little girls. Tamahiko defends Yuzuki and Yuzuki notices that the weird scent from episode 5 was from Ryo. Ryo then tells Tamahiko to have her as his mistress. There's my kabitserye senses tingling again! She then tells how he spent the entirety of yesterday with her, how he was happy seeing her in the nude, and how he gave her his bookmark. Tamahiko, getting fed up of all this insanity, tells Ryo to knock it off and the bookmark drops. Yuzuki picks it up and tears it in front of them in a fit of sadness, while Ryo continues acting like some Nisan douchebag. Ryo then leaves like the annoying douchebag that she is and goes back to her place. Tamahiko picks up the pieces afterwards. After the eye catch, we return to Tamahiko thinking about the whole thing. Yuzuki pops into his room and he notices that she's depressed until they hear a telephone call. It's in the storeroom because back in those days, phones were rarely used, unlike today with smartphones. Yuzuki answers the phone and it's from Tamako. As soon as Tamahiko answers the phone, Tamahiko's being quite a tsundere again. Tamako greets Tamahiko a happy birthday and he tells her what has happened. Tamako explains that in the language of flowers, bellflowers means sincerity. I'll add more on this later. According to Tamako, bellflowers mean unchanging love, and to Yuzuki, Ryo stealing that off Tamahiko made Yuzuki very sad. With that, Tamahiko puts the phone down and goes to work fixing that bookmark with glue, using one hand. Tell me again why this man isn't a Chad. A few hours later, Yuzuki pops up in Tamahiko's room and she sees him asleep while fixing that bookmark. And so, Tamahiko the Ever-Chad asks Yuzuki about what a bellflower means. He tells that regardless if it's torn, the sentiment is there and he's still a tsundere about it. Yuzuki apologizes what she did and Tamahiko tells her that she's innocent. She tells him that he should have told her the truth and while he's considering her feelings, he should have came clean. I'll be talking about this later as well. Yuzuki says that she thought that Tamahiko was avoiding her and how that made her feel lonely. He pats her head and apologizes. Yuzuki then tells him that she should stop taking everything on by himself and that she's jealous of him getting friendly with Ryo from earlier. She then comically and softly punches him until she's calmed down. The following day, Tamahiko has finished it and Yuzuki likes it. She remarks that bellflowers have another meaning, integrity, and how that fits Tamahiko to a T. And so the episode ends without a cliffhanger this time. The last time this has happened was way back in episode 3. Well, I'm gonna start with this. That this episode did not end up being a kabitserie. I swear, this episode and the one before that had all the setup for a kabitserie. We have a couple and then some strange woman appears to steal the leading man off from his wife and then we see two women fighting because of it. Luckily for us, we never get to this because it would not fit the slice of life aspect of this show. Next is Ryo's age. Ryo acts like an ara-ara onisan type character. This type of character is an older woman being physically and verbally seductive to a younger man. Ryo acting like this is quite fitting as she's a foil to Yuzuki. The fact that she's 18, much like Tamahiko, backfires on her as he's not into her. The fact that she belittles Yuzuki's appearance as being little only solidifies his point. Perhaps in the future, we could see Ryo getting along with Yuzuki. Next is the language of flowers. In various cultures, different flowers have various meanings. For example, giving someone red roses means that you're in love with that person. The same logic applies here with Yuzuki giving Tamahiko that bellflower bookmark. There's also the fact that Yuzuki tends to hold back her strength while comically punching Tamahiko earlier. Usually, in anime and manga, whenever a guy wrongs a girl, she punches or slaps him in the face with a lot of force. Yuzuki doing it very softly to the point where Tamahiko doesn't even feel it is quite the subversion of this trope. Finally, Tamahiko is an utter Chad of a man. This man goes from being an utterly depressed man to someone who protects his loved one regardless of his disability. Not only does he protect Yuzuki from Yo's lies, he even makes sure to reassure Yuzuki and treasure her feelings by fixing that bookmark that she gave to him. That said, he should have told her the truth from the start. Let this be a lesson, everybody, that honesty is a good thing. This episode follows chapter 12 along with the second half of chapter 11 from the manga. We see what happens when Yuzuki is sad. It feels off. Tamahiko being a Chad in this episode works well because he's able to protect her smile. I recommend this episode as it's a character study on how couples should handle a problem together. Come join me next week as I'll review episode 7. Please like, share, and subscribe.